Hey everyone, just making a video to go through a question by Claire Farley on the page today. So I'll just paraphrase the question there and see. So it was a question regarding maintenance. My understanding is that in the beginning less carbs should lead to fat loss, and when happy with weight move on to maintenance and introduce more carbs on training days. How does it work when weight hasn't changed but still want to tone and get stronger? How do I know when is the right time to move to maintenance? So really good question. There's a few different components to that. So I guess starting off, one of the main things is that it's probably a bit of a misconception about things in general, and maybe even our program, is that people can get into the mentality of carbs are the enemy as such, because that's one of the things we manipulate first. And really what we do is carb cycling. So periods where you're having carbs, periods where you're not having carbs. There's lots of reasons for that. But I had a client today who's gone totally zero carb, because obviously she had it in her head that carbs were bad, or people that were overweight were eating too many carbs or whatever, so she had just gone totally the other way, and then her training and stuff like that has suffered. So carbs serve a role and serve a purpose. They're really good. If you think of any athlete, any sport that you enjoy, any of your favorite athletes, they're eating tons and tons of carbs around that training time, but they're not when they're not exercising. So it has to match up to your training, and that's what we do. So the purpose of reducing carbs initially, and when you're trying to lose fat, the purpose of reducing carbs is to create a calorie deficit. And an easy way of creating a calorie deficit without tracking absolutely everything is to reduce carbs, and chances are you create a calorie deficit. But it's not by reducing the carbs that cause the fat loss. It's the calorie deficit, and the carbs help you get there. So that's what we want to do, especially when we're focused on fat loss. And our understanding of what we're trying to do when we're trying to lose fat is that you're kind of taking an L on your performance in a way. You're going and saying that training mightn't be the best training you've ever done because you're trying to be in a deficit, but that's more valuable for you at that time than say performance or something. So that's why you'll have seen in the past, if someone is running the ladies there a couple of weeks ago, Naomi and Amy, that ran the marathon and stuff, or the half marathon, whether they're trying to lose fat or not, I would still have advised them then to bring in carbs the day before and pre or long races and stuff like that, because for that moment in time, their focus is more on the performance. And when I was working with sports teams, there'd be a pre-season period where we'd be trying to lose fat, and the focus would be on losing fat, and that would come at the expense of their training, and that would be fine. That's a trade-off I'd be willing to make. But there'd be a certain point in the season, as championship and stuff comes around, where you'd be right, well, forget about losing fat now, because it's more important for us to actually have you perform during the match. So switching to maintenance can come from a number of ways. One is when you're at a weight that you're happy with and you don't want to lose any more weight, so then you can move over to maintenance. And the other way would be if your goals become more performance focused, you say you're competing or something like that. So when we're trying to eat in fat loss, you're creating a calorie deficit. So you're in a deficit, so you're less than 100%, and that's the focus. So we want, we accept that you're going to be less than 100% for that period of time. Then when in maintenance, you would have an allowance for more carbs, because it's expected that you would be training more, that you would be training harder as well, and utilizing those carbs more. You've got, look at the rugby players playing in the World Cup at the moment. They're going to be eating really carb heavy diets, along with the protein as well. But leading into the games, match day, all of that, they're going to be shoveling themselves full of carbs, but they're going to do an incredibly intense activity for 80 minutes. Whereas it doesn't make sense if your standard female or male is having a big bowl of porridge and going in to sit at the desk for 7 or 8 hours. So that's really the end goal with carbs, is that you're matching it to your activity levels, and that's why we have it at post training, by earning it. Now when you get into maintenance, we allow more carbs come in, pre and post, or any time on a training day. And then the other way of doing it in maintenance is, say, training day, non-training day. So when you're not training and you don't necessarily need all of those carbs, like if I'm not playing a match or training, there's no need for me to be having like porridge and potato and rice and stuff like that as much as I would normally have if I'm training or if I'm playing a game or something like that. So yeah, like in the beginning, as you've said there, in the beginning, less carbs should lead to fat loss. It's because of the calorie deficit that is doing that. But when you're happy with the weight, you move into maintenance, and then you can introduce more carbs on training days. It's expected you're able to control your weight a bit better when you're in maintenance. So it's not like you're just going to go crazy and have a ton of carbs for no reason. It's still guided by your output and like the activity that you're doing. And if your weight hasn't changed but you still want to tone and get stronger, I mean, it depends on what the goal is then. If you're happy with the weight, you could eat at maintenance level. If someone is training really hard, they can get away with eating at maintenance level 5, 6, 7 days a week. That's fine. But if it's a case that like you're kind of controlled your diet and your training is kind of the same and things aren't moving, the two variables that can only ever affect things are basically the amount of training and effort you do and type and your nutrition. So it's like what goes out and what goes in. And if nutrition is well controlled at the moment, I'd look at exercise and be like, right, well, am I training as hard as I can be, or have I gone a bit stagnant in my training, or have I hit a bit of a plateau? Can I change things up there and maybe go up to heavier weights, or bring in an additional type of class, or do something different that you haven't been doing just to move things along there? Or if it's a case that like other times it might be a case that the nutrition is the one that needs to be modified a bit, but it'll always be those two things for everyone. So yeah, the act of toning isn't even like that's something that comes up as well, like as a goal or whatever. But like you can't tone anything, you can't tone a muscle or anything. What it is you lose fat or build muscle, and it appears that the muscle is bigger or more prominent, or leaner or more visible. But it's just you've stripped back fat off that. So what I would do in that scenario and encourage for maintenance is like have your carbs on your training day and pull out on them on your non-training day. So you can be like maintenance 4 days a week when you're working out and 3 days with a kind of fat loss focus. And that should give you the best of both worlds. Whereas like when fat loss is our primary goal, we want to be in that zone like 7 days a week or constantly. So there's a lot in that. I mean, it's a big enough it's a broad enough question, but I hopefully answered some of it there. So if there's more follow-up questions, maybe put them up again and I'll make another video for it. But yeah, let me know what you think anyway.